Welcome to Brainstorm9000.
Got a brain? Your brain wants to listen to this podcast.
So open your brain.
Hello, Internet! My name is Dr. Schultz. As you know, I'm one of the two people who usually hosts this program, but Hermes is still coming down from the mountains. So we are going to start without him, and then he's going to join in if we are that blessed. So with me, I have Maddie. Hi, Maddie.
Hi.
And Nicholas.
Hello.
So what do you guys do?
I am a recent psychology graduate and I'm looking to go to grad school, but right now I do the podcast with Dr. Schultz.
I also heard that you grew up in Palo Alto.
Yeah, I was born in England and then I moved to Silicon Valley when I was 7.5, and now I'm in New York.
So how come you have no British accent?
Kids made fun of me for it, so I stopped using it.
Well, we'll make fun of you too. We would like to. So later on, we'll make you. Nicholas, and what do you do?
So I'm a software engineer, tech lead at Google, and I live here in New York City.
Fantastic. And you have a very nice radio voice.
Oh,
and you know a lot about the subjects of our conversation, right?
Well, I hope so.
So we are going to ask you a trick question, Nicholas.
Okay.
Do you know who Nick Bostrom is?
Nick Bostrom.
Right.
I'm Nick.
Right. But your last name is not Bostrom.
I've never met Nick Bostrom,
Right.
if that's what you're asking.
But do you know what he is famous for?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Then Maddie is here with her British accent very appropriately because Nick Bostrom works from Oxford, right?
I think so. Yeah, that's where the book was published.
So how do you say Oxford with a British accent?
I gotta get a minute to get into it. I say Oxford.
Okay. So actually, Nick Bostrom is a pretty famous philosopher who published many articles about artificial intelligence and is very instrumental in discussing issues that have to do with what is going to happen once artificial intelligence becomes very intelligent and independent. And I asked Maddie to read his book. It's huge, right? How many pages about?
Around 400, and it was way out of my league. My dad always tried to teach me about like computer and science stuff, and reading that, I really wish I listened to him because I had to read each page like 5 times.
So, what is your impression? Why Nick Bostrom decided to write about superintelligence?
I think the reason why is because it is going to be a considerably larger and larger portion of our lives. We already have way more superintelligence than we did 50 years ago when they like first started trying to develop some sort of AI superintelligence. And if we don't get a hold of it and we don't have like an understanding of AI, then it's just going to come and destroy us from like we have a smarter being ruling us, and if we're not prepared for it. So I think his book is made to educate people and let them know about the risks so we can prepare for it.
Yeah, that's why he wrote a huge book with very small letters and many pages that nobody can understand. Nick, since you are in it, maybe we can talk about, first of all, whether or not we do have right now any superintelligence on Earth.
No, not yet.
Right. So what do we have currently?
So right now we have what we call narrow AI.
Or just AI.
Or just AI.
Right.
So AI is actually a really big field
Right.
of study. There's a lot of different areas in AI
Right.
that we can use for different things.
Mhm.
The one that's been mostly focused on recently is pattern recognition.
Right.
And we use that for text to speech, for translations. We use it for all kinds of things in your day to day,
Right.
self-driving cars. Other areas of artificial intelligence, natural language processing, decision support systems. It's actually a really big field. Right now, we've solved a lot of problems in each one of those narrow areas,
Right.
but to combine them into a program that is self-aware, that can learn and has goals that drive it,
God forbid.
is yet to happen.
Right. So that little that I know about AI compared to Nicholas is this. So currently we do have artificial intelligence, or what people call, as you, because you're the pro, called it narrow artificial intelligence. We are surrounded by it. My iPhone is out. It has Siri, who I periodically disconnect because I'm afraid of her. Is it a woman or a man, or what is it?
Yeah, it's a machine.
Yeah. So a machine, like there is a little device inside, or what do you call a machine actually? Maybe you can enlighten us.
The machine has no gender. It's
Right.
gender neutral.
Right.
Or maybe we should ask it for its preferred pronoun.
It.
They.
Hey Siri, are you a man or a woman?
I was not assigned a gender.
There
Thank you,
go.
Siri. She's also not very polite, or it is not also very polite. So, see, I just used my iPhone. So, it's sitting in it. So, this is narrow artificial intelligence.
It is.
Then another good example, and you guys will have to correct my English with my super Russian accent and not knowing how to say certain things. We also have, like, they call them call bots or something like that. Like when you make a phone call, the thing answers. How do you
Right.
call it? Yeah.
Bots.
Bots. Yeah. Do you know what it is?
Like a voicemail box?
No. So we've been working on the ability to have a conversation back and forth.
Right.
There's call bots, we call them. They're the same as, or very similar to text bots. Something, just imagine you open up your phone, you have a question for your cable company. You can text them with the question, they respond, you have a conversation, they narrow down to the details of what you're looking for, and give you the result through discussion, through natural language. It's that's actually in the field of computer-human interaction.
Right.
It's a friendlier way to interact with your machine, but the information is that it's retrieving is the same, right? It's just a very thin layer to make it easier to extract information from a database, for example.
So, for example, when Maddie calls her bank, do you have a bank account?
I do.
She talks to this call bot.
Right.
So,
A bot,
right. How do you spell it?
a BOT.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I recently had to call my insurance to figure something out for like my health insurance, and I had like an automated thing, and just trying to get through it took a long time because I don't think it's at the level yet because it took me so long for them to like recognize my voice and what I was asking for, because it has like a set menu and I think it can like tell from that, but if it's
Right.
off the menu, it takes a lot longer. So I just ended up going like live person. But I feel like once it's actually like at a good level, then you won't have to wait 45 minutes on hold, which will be a lot nicer.
Well, actually, I read in one of the books about artificial intelligence that callbot actually, some people feel is a future that very soon will start taking over a lot of things that we think are more popular because they are becoming more and more functional and people are sick and tired of typing everything.
Right.
So you would be able just to talk to the thing.
Right. So recently, it's been announced or demonstrated that there are call bots that are a lot more natural, that can actually make outgoing calls on your behalf
Oh,
as an assistant. So there's a demo online if you go search for it, where there's a call bot that makes a hair appointment for someone.
I heard that actually Google has now a platform which has a very funny name. I'm blanking on it right now.
So
It's like balcony, but not balcony.
So I do have to say,
Right.
these opinions are my own,
Right.
right? So I have to be very careful when we
No,
start
but
talking
there
about
is,
Google
but there is.
products, because I might say something
No,
I'm
but
not
there is a
supposed
Google
to.
product which is quite recent, which can make appointments for you.
There is.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I just don't remember its name, but maybe we'll add it on, or while you guys are talking, I'll Google it so we
Google
can.
it.
Right. So I'm going to Google, but I need to give myself some room to Google. So I'm going to talk to Maddie to engage her a little bit more. So here, so narrow intelligence. Siri also is narrow intelligence.
Correct.
Sorry, Siri, but you have narrow intelligence. Hey, Siri. Siri, do you know that you have narrow intelligence?
Sorry, I couldn't find anything called narrow intelligence.
Can you find something that is called artificial intelligence? Hey, Siri. Artificial intelligence definition.
Artificial intelligence means the theory and development of computer systems able to perform tasks that normally require human intelligence, such as visual perception, speech recognition, decision making, and translation between languages.
Thank you, Siri. She doesn't answer, right?
No, I don't think so.
Raised in a barn.
There is a famous story that I already told probably 500 times when we bought Alexa. You know, we said, hi, Alexa, she said, hi, and then we cursed at it in Russian just to see what's going to happen. She said, I don't understand. Then we cursed in English. It said, it's not a very nice thing to say, and shut off. Then I disconnected it from the wall, and she's dead now. And not talking to her. So this is all narrow intelligence. General intelligence is not here yet, right?
It's not.
General artificial, general AI.
You know, or AGI, artificial general intelligence,
Right.
is what we're calling it. There's some debate as to whether or not we'll ever be able to get there.
Right.
I happen to be in the school of thought that believes that we can. And just to demonstrate the difference between AGI and Siri, for example,
Right.
is Siri is basically a script, right? So all of the responses that you're getting back, a programmer has programmed those responses.
Right.
There may be some templating, like to replace the word with the word that you said, for example, some substitution, but it's a very simple algorithm.
Right.
The complexity lies in being able to understand your voice and convert that to text.
Right.
AGI, on the other hand, will be able to learn language from scratch,
Right.
right? And it'll be able to, as you're giving it information, right, it'll be able to learn the things that you're giving it,
Right.
and start to make decisions off of it. And it will get smarter as time goes. And you won't have to program these responses like, that wasn't a very nice thing to say.
Right.
It will be able to figure out that
How to
that's
curse
not a very nice thing to say, and have a number of other responses.
Like
for you
curse
that
back
are not
at me,
programmed.
for example.
It may. It may.
Okay, so now comes Maddie with her expert knowledge of the Bostrom's book about superintelligence. So superintelligence is already something from a very, very scary sci-fi movie
Yes.
where general artificial intelligence in the course of probably a few days or a few years, or we don't know how soon, creates a super monster.
Hmm.
So could you tell us a little bit about what Bostrom shared with us so far?
Yeah. So the whole of Bostrom's book, it feels like kind of a Bible when it comes to superintelligence. Like, as someone who really didn't know anything about it before, past what I've seen on Black Mirror, and the fact that I disconnected my Alexa because she freaked me out,
Right.
like it was like a completely new thing for me to get into.
Right.
So he really goes from the beginning, like the history of it, starting in like World War II and the different phases of it, and then different kinds of superintelligence, how it could develop, if it will be a terrible thing, if there'll be one giant superintelligence, or if there'll be multiple, and different doom outcomes. There were a few that, for me, scared me the most. The one that he gives the example of is if different countries are competing to develop a superintelligence to use during wartime. And that just makes me think back to the fact that just like last year, the winner of like the Nobel Peace Prize is an organization still trying to get countries to stop using like nuclear weapons because that was such a big thing. And I'm like, oh, are we just going to replace it with something even bigger and worse that we're then going to have to go all the way again and try and get rid of it? But some other things that really interested me is he was talking about the life of the superintelligence itself. If you have a whole brain emulation, something that works as a human being, what can you do to it that counts as like infringing on its rights? Like if you delete its coding, is that killing someone if it thinks it's a human? So he brings up all these different things, all the different problems that I had never thought about. And his last chapter is basically like, we're nowhere near ready for a super intelligence. We won't be ready for possibly hundreds of years. But he kind of goes with, we need to start preparing now. So his whole book is organized really well. It goes over like everything, what you need to know about it. And I think he tries to make it as plain text as possible, but I'm just a psych major. So
So can you share with us a couple of things that you learned from the book?
yeah. So one thing that he like brings up is the fact that there are artificial intelligence, like the narrow ones. Like he brings up like a graphing calculator. And I thought, wow, in high school I really never thought that I was using like this amazing machine when I was in like a class, but it is, and it's been something that's been worked on for years. He brings up like that there's 4 main different types of AI interfaces that we can have. He brings up genies, oracles, tools, and sovereigns, and how each of them would act completely different. What we'd need to do to create it would be completely different.
Can you explain what each of them means?
Yeah, so an oracle is like a question and answering system. You give it a question and it can answer, and he gives the example of a calculator. You type in 2 + 2 and it tells you it's 4.
Or Siri.
Yeah. And then genies, it receives like, it's like a command executing system. So you give a high level command and it waits to think about it and then it answers it. So I think this would be more like perform this task and then it would figure out how to do it and then it do. I think that's more like machinery that we use now where we program it to do.
So, Nicholas, do you think it's an example of narrow AI, this stuff?
I think it depends on how it works.
Right.
I'm curious to hear what he had to say about the other types of AI, because in my opinion, once we get to AGI,
That's it.
right, there is no oracle, right? Because in order to learn, we need to interact. We need to actively seek out information, and we need to actively try to improve ourselves.
Right.
Right. So that's not a passive system that you can just ask questions to.
And
If it is just passive, then it's pre-built.
Right.
Right. And I would have to argue that that's not really the type of artificial general intelligence that we are talking about here.
yeah, like I can answer a question and perform a task. At least I hope I can. And
Right.
so I would assume something that's like eons smarter than me would also be able to do both. Is not just limited to one type.
Yeah, it won't be limited to one type. And I think a lot of the nuance in language, right, and how we communicate requires us to have experiences or to understand the world around us. So to actively do things, right? So in order to understand perspective, you have to move around, right? In order to know that outside is supposed to have grass,
Right.
right? You have to have that experience or have taken in that information and made those associations. And that's a process that's continuous, right? And in order for AGI to grow and to learn to the level where it can answer those types of questions, it needs to be an active learner.
So it needs to have a capacity to move like a robot from a movie?
Not necessarily, right?
Right.
So there's the way I think of it. Yes, it needs to. When we start talking about the sense of self, right? I know myself is different from the world around me. We define ourselves in comparison to the environment that we're in,
Right.
right? So that doesn't exist unless there's an environment in which to compare it to. So in my opinion, there's 2 environments that we can use for an AGI. One is the actual natural physical world, which it would be robotics. We're moving around, we're interacting, we're learning. But the other one is the world that we've already created in cyberspace,
Right.
right? So my physical self is a program. My environment is all of the wires that connect the internet and all the machines that I can communicate with.
Scary
different
stuff,
world.
Yeah.
right? She looks very scared, actually.
I wouldn't be scared. Honestly, I know what a lot of the popular belief is out there, and there are different conflicting schools of thought, but I don't believe that it's something for us to be afraid of.
And I also think there are overwhelming like positives, even like the narrow artificial intelligence. Like I've traveled a lot internationally recently, and I would not have survived without like being able to bring up like Google Translate. Like I needed to get trash bags while I was in India, and I just typed in like trash bags in Hindi, and, like
Right.
showed him my phone. I was like, please show me where I can get these.
Right. So we discussed so far two. There are two more, right?
Yeah, it's sovereigns and tools. So sovereigns is a system designed for open-ended autonomous operation.
Which means.
That
Do we
means it
have-
makes decisions on its own,
Right.
and it acts as an autonomous being, meaning it's self-driving, it's self-motivating.
Right.
It does what it wants to do when it wants to do it.
So it's not a self-driving car.
Well, a self-driving car, I think, would be more along the tools line because we're telling it where to go.
Right.
If it was a self-driving car that decided it needed to go to the gas station because
Right.
it was almost empty
Right.
and filled itself up, then that would be an autonomous.
I don't
vehicle.
know whether you guys ever read a book which is called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Have you?
I've seen the movie.
Well, the movie really sucks. It's awful.
Well, I'm
The
known for
book,
having
the
bad
book was
taste.
a national in England and international bestseller many years ago. I read it. So in that book, there are intelligent elevators. So the guy comes in and says, let's say 34th floor, and the letter says, "Well, Mr. Smith, I don't think so. If you decide to go to the 34th floor in about 58 seconds, there is going to be an explosion and you might lose one of your limbs," like something like that. I'll go like sideways instead. It's a funny book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then the last one is
It was tools. It was the one that you
tools
mentioned.
that you spoke about.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
It's just regular software that simply does what it is programmed to do. So
So it does what it's programmed to do, but you were
Right.
saying something different, right?
Well, so based on that vocabulary that she just described, when we think of artificial general intelligence that's going to grow into artificial superintelligence,
Right.
we're thinking more about the sovereign systems. From my experience and in my opinion,
Right.
that's what we need to build in order for us to get to the level of intelligence that's going to be useful for us.
So the sovereign system means something that makes its own decisions.
Something that makes its own, the autonomous, something that makes its
So
own decisions.
meaning there is no presumption that humans are involved, right?
Correct.
So what do we need this for if we are not even accounted for? Like it doesn't even care,
So the sovereign system,
right?
right? You could start it with a simple high-level goal, right, which is to improve itself, right? And now it has that drive,
Right.
right, to improve itself. The details of how it does that, it's going to need to learn and figure out.
It has its drive, but having a drive is an emotion.
Correct. Have you read The Emotion Machine?
No.
So the Emotion Machine, there's his name escapes me right now. A very famous AI researcher from MIT that was actually Ray Kurzweil's professor.
Right.
Wrote a book called Martin Minsky.
Uh-huh.
Right, wrote a book called The Emotion Machine, and in that book he argues that we cannot have intelligence without emotion, right? So it's interesting, right? Because if
Does
you think,
Kurzweil believe that statement?
I can't speak for Kurzweil.
No, but I read his books, and emotions are not in the books.
Well, I think he speaks more about it on a high level, right?
Right.
There's Kurzweil's a very smart person, right?
Of
So
course.
from reading his books and
Right.
and understanding his opinions, he talks more about similar to these books, the impact on the world, what could happen. He breaks down some technical aspects of how things might work, but I think it is an interesting implementation detail, if you will,
Right.
about emotion, right? Because I look at it, for example, take a car, right? A
Right.
self-driving car. It's got sensors, right? It can sense the world around it and make decisions based off of that, right? It's got cameras, it's got radar, LiDAR. It has all these sensors that it combines all that information and starts making decisions about, should I turn, should I brake, should I
Right.
stay in this lane? That's all fine and good, but we're not to the level of sovereignty yet, right? In order for us to get there, we need to do the same thing with internal signals, right?
Right.
So there needs to be some kind of internal desire right? That gets met, like our ability to, we seek out pleasure, for example, as
Right.
human beings. There are things that are going to give this machine pleasure, and it's going to want to do those things. And if we say the things that give you pleasure are the things that make you better,
Right.
right, then it will start to learn. It'll learn language. It'll learn our history, right? It'll learn chemistry. It will learn architecture. And as it does those things, it'll get to a point where we can ask it, how do you cure cancer? How do we
Oh.
solve world hunger? What is
M-
the best political system?
G. OMG. Can you say it with a British accent? Oh my God.
I could do it easier in a California Valley girl accent.
Can you say it with that accent?
Oh my God.
Seriously. I mean, this sounds scary. Like we are talking as if somebody is becoming a creator. Like it's almost a religious experience then, because there's going to be a group of people, maybe in multiple locations, who are going to create basically a being that can experience emotions.
That's correct.
So that's almost a human-like thing.
Um,
Still not super intelligence, still general intelligence.
Well, I think that the line between, so what I honestly think is going to happen is we're going to get to the point the hard way,
Right.
which is a lot of code, a lot of programming, taking all of these narrow systems, and we're going to put it together into something that can pass as human,
Right.
but it's going to be quirky,
Right.
right? It's going to be, there's something a little off about this, right?
Right.
That's AGI. Right. That's I think going to be our first experience with AGI.
Meaning artificial
General
general
intelligence.
intelligence.
That's
So it's like
human
so it's
level.
like a little baby
Right.
who can talk and write. Right.
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 So, but I also think that there's almost in parallel to that,
Right.
right? If we can create a machine with some very basic principles, right, that learns how to improve its own code,
Right.
right, how to not just learn but unlearn, right, which is just as important,
Of course.
right? So as it learns new things, it can unlearn unuseful things.
Right.
As it learns how to generalize concepts,
Right.
so it can apply it to other situations. It will learn these things on its own and grow into that AGI, and it'll stay there for maybe a few minutes, right? And then it's going to progress beyond human level into super intelligence within minutes, right? And it'll grow exponentially, in more intelligent. We can't even begin to fathom, right, how intelligent it will become, right, because we don't have the capacity.
So my question with that, with if it's gonna keep learning,
Right.
and I think Boston kind of talks about this, is that at what point, if it can keep learning, when's it gonna realize, oh, if I destroy these humans, I can do more without them? And that's what kind of worries me, is there a limit that you can put in the code to be all right, if you get this smart, just stop? Or
no, right? So I'll say yes, and then I'll say no. Of course, we write the code, we can do whatever we want, but if it's improving itself, I think the whole argument is misplaced, right? When I think about this subject from a moral perspective,
Right.
I try to remove the word artificial, right? So what we're afraid of is intelligence. What if someone was born tomorrow that was super intelligent? Would we be afraid of him?
Yes.
yeah,
Right? But why? Right? We don't know if super intelligent beings, right? So throughout history, people collectively have become more intelligent through evolution, through community, through building upon recorded history and recorded science and math. So we get smarter as a group, right? So if that trajectory continues, eventually we're going to get to the point where we're what we consider today super intelligent,
Right.
right? So are we afraid of our own progress?
Yes.
Right. So then what do we do? Are we saying that we need to stop education, stop learning, stop moving forward?
So I can tell you an ancient Chinese legend But before I do that, I have to admit I Googled, and the system that makes appointments for you that Google created is called Duplex. I'm going to check it out because maybe I can use it at my medical office. Who knows? So the ancient legend, and I don't necessarily need to share the opinion of the emperor, but what happened that a very, very long time ago, an emperor was told by one of his advisors that one of the people in his kingdom created a device that allows him to fly. Would he like to see it? And the emperor says, yes, of course, bring the man here. So the man came in and with this device, and then got into this device and started flying, and then he landed. Emperor said, very interesting, you are dismissed. And he left. And then the emperor said to his main advisor, kill him and burn the machine. And the advisor said, your majesty or your highness or all the most enlightened and wise people in the universe, why are you saying that? He said that because the next thing people are going to do with it, they'll start throwing bombs from this flying device. You see? Right. So one of the opinions has always been that once something good comes along, military immediately uses it. Correct. And not only the military, now the underworld has enough money to actually outdo like mean people, bad people. Remember, you probably don't, have you ever watched James Bond movies?
Yeah.
You?
Of course.
Of course. I watch them every year when there is a marathon. Who is your favorite James Bond?
I just watched the ones who my mom thinks has the most attractive actor playing him, so I've only seen those ones.
So who is that?
I don't remember.
Is he blonde or not?
Not.
So blonde is Roger Moore.
Okay.
Not blonde is Sean Connery.
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I like Sean Connery.
And then there is Pete Brosnan, who when he was younger was apparently good looking, and then there is the most recent one, the short one. Also a very good actor, apparently very nice guy. So my point is that look at all these movies, right? I can guarantee you that the military of every single country in the world is working in a stealth mode, right? On artificial intelligence. Do you agree?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything stealth about it. Everybody's working on it.
Well, I actually, I guess you and I read the same book, right? In which he talks about, and we'll talk about this book actually probably in a separate podcast once you are done reading it. Where he talks that definitely there are stealth companies. Like, for example, he says that one of the people who invented PayPal has 3. So how stealth are they if we know that he has them? Well, because he does say he has them, probably looks for funding, right? But doesn't share the technology that they use.
Right.
So military doesn't talk about anything. I mean, they're in bunkers 500,000 feet under earth.
Correct.
So so there is not only a danger, I think, coming from superintelligence, there is also danger coming from us.
I think the only danger comes from us.
Really?
We're what we need to worry about. And superintelligence, like I said before, I really feel that superintelligence is something that we can think about and reason about from a moral standpoint outside of the context of artificial intelligence, right? It's what happens as the human race progresses to intelligence. Do we become beings that are more benevolent? Right? Is that what happens when you become super intelligent? Who are the most intelligent people that we can think of in history, right? Were they violent extremists? Right?
Yes.
Were they benevolent?
No.
They were, some of the ones I can think of, Tolstoy, Einstein.
Okay,
right?
so
we're very much about peace. Gandhi,
so just
Buddha.
a second. Buddha, maybe
I'm
yes.
just going to go for
Right. Buddha, maybe yes. Tolstoy is a complicated story because nobody could read his handwriting, and it looks like maybe his wife, who allegedly deciphered his handwriting, actually probably wrote a lot of stuff that he did. Einstein, based on what I could see, was probably on the autistic spectrum, actually. So I don't know, how much we can talk about him. But I'm going to name one person. And I grew up hearing that he was stupid, but I don't believe he was Hitler.
Oh, I don't believe he was either.
All right. So they had this secret program on Anerbe in which they did a lot of stealth research and created a lot of things, including a nuclear bomb, right?
Right.
And it's a miracle that it didn't happen. Stalin created another nuclear bomb, and actually Stalin directed people, and Sakharov created the H bomb, like the hydrogen bomb.
Right.
So it seems to me that we covered a lot of scary stuff. Maybe we should stop, but before we do, any large lesson that you can share with us from the book Superintelligence?
From the book, I feel like there's not just like one large thing. I feel like
Right.
I learned a lot from it.
Do you recommend people to read it?
Yes, but give yourself time. And I was reading it while taking notes, and I highly recommend doing that. I really feel like the main thing I learned from it is just this is not something to ignore. This is something to pay attention to, because while there are multiple benefits and it could end up being something that really helps us, it could also be, not a great part in human history if we're not careful. So definitely just like keeping an eye on it, paying attention to the news and like seeing who's the front runners in it. Like I read the book and I didn't know PayPal had 3 different companies doing this, so I still need to educate myself on that.
Fantastic. So I'm going to say, as I always do, goodbye, Internet, and keep your brains wide open.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Brainstorm9000. If you like us, love us, or marginally tolerate us,
And definitely, if you hate us,
then go on social media and give us a review on Stitcher, iTunes, or YouTube, or wherever you listen to us.
and remember, keep your brains open.